Hello, I'm Robert LeBoyer, Senior Biotechnology Analyst at Noble Capital. With us here today is the co-CEO of Cocrystal Pharmaceuticals, Jim Martin. Jim, could you please start by telling us about Cocrystal and your business?
Yeah, first, thanks for having me here on this conference and your audience for listening in here. So Cocrystal is the antiviral therapeutic company. Just to emphasize the difference between a therapeutic and a vaccine is, in general, vaccines are more preventative, where therapeutics are more of a treatment to treat the virus once you become ill. And what we've seen, and everyone has seen really, is vaccines can only go so far. There are limitations to them in general, and there's always going to be a need for a therapeutic. And there is a strong need in the indications that we are looking at here, which we focus on high-value targets such as influenza. We also have a norovirus program that's in the clinical trial. And we have coronavirus assets that are also in a clinical trial.
Great. And how does the company's structure-based drug discovery platform work? Can you tell us a little bit about the core technologies and what its advantages are compared with traditional drug discovery?
Yeah, definitely. I mean, it's the platform that was developed by our founders, which are Dr. Roger Kornberg had won a Nobel Prize. And he took that idea and industrialized it into a platform, which was financed by one of our other directors and shareholders, Dr. Philip Frost. And that's how the company started, with the idea of creating these antivirals that would be very broad spectrum. Broad spectrum meaning, for instance, in influenza, it's a general term. There's a whole family of viruses under influenza, family members, H1N1, H5N1. And so the idea here is to create a drug that would be broad spectrum against the whole family, because there's two things that almost all viruses are good at. Two things. One, they replicate very quickly. And what that does is allow them to quickly grab a hold of the body, and the body actually many times will overreact and cause additional issues. So rapidly they can replicate. And the other thing they do very good is they mutate. They're very good at mutating. I think a lot of us are familiar with coronavirus and then all the variants that we saw coming out. This is just a virus mutating, and that happens a lot. So getting back to the core of your question, Robert, what we do is we specialize in taking the virus itself, and we can crystallize it, much like a salt crystal. And then we take high intense X-rays of this crystal. And these are only available a few places in the world that you can get these X-rays that we use. And we're able to get a near atomic level roadmap of the virus. And we do this for every family member of the virus. And so then we could see the whole virus. And we specialize in going after the replication. So we focus on the replication area of the virus. And as we take the whole family members and do this to them, we overlay them in a very simple sense, so that so you can see all of them and see that one area of the replication where it doesn't change, where it's the same, whether it's this virus, this family member, this family, it doesn't matter which one. They all have this one area in their replication process that has never mutated. That's similar across the whole family. And we consider that a highly conserved area, an area that's required for this, it's just influenza virus, or it could be noro, or it could be, coronavirus, but they all have this one area that doesn't change. And that's the area that we create drugs to bind to. And by binding to that area of the virus, we're able to disrupt the process of replication. And So in simple terms, we're able to see the virus, find these areas that are the same across the whole family. We're able to bind to it our drugs so that we can stop that process of replication. And so once this drug is taken, and our drugs that we have in clinical trials are oral, whether it's whether it's our phase 2 or phase 1 that we're going on, they're both oral. So it breaks up into the body. It finds the virus because it's a treatment. It finds the actual virus. These are direct acting antivirals. They go right after the virus. They attach to the replication of the virus. They stop that replication, and they stop the number one thing, which is this rapid replication that overwhelms the body. So by doing this, in truth, our drug stops the replication and it also allows the body, which can fight the virus. The biggest problem is it just replicates so fast and overwhelms the body. So we keep that virus in check. The body jumps in, and by doing that, we're able to just stop the virus and stop the symptoms of the virus.
Okay, and one of the things about a lot of other vaccines is that they recognize the whole virus in the bloodstream. But would it be correct to say that you're acting earlier on the replication and preventing the virus from forming compared with other approaches that recognize the whole virus in the bloodstream?
So there's some other drugs that are out there that are similar to us in that they're therapeutics. Would be Tamiflu, which has been around for many years. Another one called Xofluza. We're different, but we're the same in that we are treatment. So the idea is that when you are either just got infected, like if you and I went out last night and you were coughing on me or you're sick, and I'm going to go and start taking the drug because okay, so you take it early on. Or if I'm starting to feel a little sick today, I go and get the drug. I mean, these days, if you have a relationship with your doctor, you just can tell them I'm feeling these symptoms, and they'll make sure, and then they'll be pretty quick at getting you a drug. That's the way Tamiflu, Xofluza work, which is already established. So that's the idea, is to do that, to get these drugs early, either when you are very positive that you've been infected by somebody or you're starting to feel the symptoms. You start to take the drug. The drug itself, it reduces the viral load by stopping the replication. So viral load is taken by a blood test. So what's nice about our industry, and where we focus, that we're able to test viral load. So as opposed to like a pain medication, which could be a bit subjective, how does it hurt a lot? Does it hurt a little? Score from 1 to 10. Our drugs, we're able to actually see that viral load and get a precise scientific measurement as opposed to something more subjective. And so basically we do reduce the viral load in the bloodstream by attacking the replication of the drug. Now, just to emphasize, the Tamiflu itself and the Xofluza have both seen resistance because of the mutations that have happened. Going back to what makes us different is the way we approach these drugs that we developed, is that we create them to be, as I said, we target that highly conserved area that across the whole family has not mutated. We consider that a necessary area of the replication. And so we've seen a very broad spectrum, very resistant to mutation data on our drug, as opposed to what Xofluza went out over 20-something years ago. But the mutations have built up for them. Now, and these are still multi-billion-dollar markets. That Tamiflu itself is all patent. And last I saw it was over $1 billion a year still in sales. So they're doing quite well, and there's still a large opportunity out there, especially for a superior drug.
Great. Okay. And you've used this approach to develop drugs. Can you tell us about the clinical development and what indication that you're targeting?
Sure. So we have set up clinical trials in different parts of the world. Um, there are some advantages to Australia, where we've conducted our phase 1 trials. Uh, Starting with our influenza product, we completed a phase 1 in Australia, and you got, I believe it's over a 40% rebate that we get in that research. So just as a side note, that speaks to the efficiency of the company and cash efficiency, which is another one of our, I believe, our strengths. But that was completed, and then we began a phase 2 over in the UK that's ongoing. And that phase 2, I mean, at first the phase 1 showed a great safety profile. It was well tolerated, and that, of course, is why we progressed to phase 2. The other drug that we have, we call it CDI 988. Most drugs have a term like that before they're marketed eventually, and they come up with a nice little name. But internally, it's CDI 988. This is a pan-viral or dual-purpose drug. It's has very strong antiviral activity, and it has been shown in our tests to be effective against both norovirus and coronaviruses, which includes MERS and COVID-19. It's that potent. We put this at a phase 1 under the dual indication that it could do either, because you could do that because the phase 1 really tests safety and tolerability of a drug. So it's not really testing efficacy. And again, this drug was also well tolerated, great safety profile. And so we just put that out weeks ago, that news that we've completed, got the top line results out, and now we're planning to put that into a phase 2. We're looking at putting that over in a challenge model over in the U.S. over at Emory, and we're working on that now. It's still not finalized, but that's our plans with that as we're wrapping up this phase 1. And by the way, that I don't know if I clarified it. The phase 2, even though you can do dual purpose on the phase 1, because again, it's only safety and tolerability. You're just giving the drug, making sure they don't get sick, making sure it's safe, there's not any toxins. So you could do that. You could have multiple indications. For the phase 2 that I spoke that we're planning to do that for noro only. You would need a separate phase 2 for the coronavirus side of that, because phase 2s test for efficacy, and that you need to narrow what are you trying to test for? What are you trying to treat? So just want to clarify that. So we're taking that, even that's been indicated for two indications, and we're going to follow, because norovirus, just to be clear, has no approved vaccine, none, no therapeutic, none, nothing's approved. All you can do is treat the symptoms. And this is a very rapidly, it kind of pops up in different places. It's not like flu that kind of has a season. It just pops up a lot of times on cruise lines. The BARDA, the military, they have a very keen interest in finding a solution for this, especially something that has prophylaxis to it, where you can if someone gets sick on a Navy ship, you can give it to them, and then you can give it to the rest of the crew around them to prevent them from getting it. Any type of close quarters type activity, even hospitals could use it. You don't want the whole hospital having an outbreak of norovirus. So it has a strong potential, not only for being used, but also for stockpiling. And that's part of what drove us to go that route, as opposed to what we're seeing as a very flooded coronavirus market. Even though we think we have the best drug potentially there, it's a bit flooded. Norovirus is a very strong need for that out there.
Yes, that you mentioned cruise ship illness, and that's been in the news this year, and there have been several outbreaks. But as you mentioned, even though it's closely associated with cruise ship illness, it's also very common in areas where there are a lot of people living in close quarters with food service. So military, universities, and food service and hospitals all are prone to norovirus outbreaks that are sudden and not seasonal. So Could you just expand a little bit on why you're developing CDI 988 as a therapeutic and a preventive?
Well, I touched on that a little bit. So let's take the example of a cruise ship or a military ship or a military base, or where we think this will be, or just a small town where this would be very prevalent. And that, just to be clear, norovirus spreads faster. I mean, studies have shown even faster than influenza. I mean, it doesn't just you can get through the air, you can get through the touch. I mean, it does spread very rapidly, and it's been a real big problem where people in close quarters. You really need to isolate people, which is difficult to do when you're stuck on a ship or base or town. Anyways, so uh, it's important that when someone gets sick, it's a miserable sickness for that person. The silver lining is laws would, so they take, so when you get sick, they treat the symptoms. There's a lot of vomiting, diarrhea, and it's just really nasty, and you treat the symptoms and you just keep them hydrated. As long as you do that, they'll usually get through it. So my silver lining I was alluding to is that there's not a lot of deaths, which is the good news. But the bad news, it moves quickly. It's a terrible disease for people to get. So you want to treat that. To your point, first one, treat it. Obviously. But why do you want to prevent it is because now we're all stuck around this person. And the way this is so contagious, it's not just like in the air, like a lot of influenza has to be almost in the air and coughed on. I mean, it could be on the door. Norovirus is very contagious. Anything that, that's why I don't know if you ever see, but they have to wipe everything down. They have to shut things down for a week and wipe down everything to try and clean up like a ship. So the point is, it spreads so quickly, you got to have a preventative to start giving everybody else that's been around. Everyone, especially if, on a military setting. I mean, a cruise ship, it costs them millions of dollars. They have to turn the ship around. It always happens. I live in South Florida, so I'm very familiar with this, that part of it. But I was also in the Navy, and, these ships, I mean, you can't have them go down like that. So it's very important to have that available, stockpiled on every ship. In case it does get onto the ship, you can isolate, treat, and prevent. Prevention is just to keep operations going in a necessary environment like that.
Okay, well, clearly you've made the point about how sanitizing these places where there's been an outbreak is both disruptive to operations and expensive, as well as the impact on the people. How has norovirus been handled thus far, and are other companies trying to develop norovirus vaccines and therapeutics with different approaches?
I'm not aware of anyone that's really made any progress so far. It's been a difficult disease for a lot of companies. I think we are probably the most advanced in having a therapeutic that we're working on. As far as the results coming out of it, as far as the preclinical data, looks very strong. So I think that we're the leader at this point on that front. I believe there may be some other companies out there, so don't quote me, but you don't hear a lot about anyone else really where we're at. And you're right, I do focus quite a bit on how these things are contagious and how contagious they are and how to you prevent. But thinking about having to wipe down and clean and something like norovirus just to be able to get operational again, there's a huge amount of money involved to do that. I mean, the cost of an outbreak is extensive. So, I mean, this is over a $60 billion market out there, what we've seen and what we're being, and we're referencing CDC and it looks like that could be there could be a lot of savings and a lot of opportunity if we can get a drug to market.
Sure. And speaking of getting the drug to market, where are you in clinical trials, and what is the
I could start with that one. So where are we at with clinical trials? There's a right, as I said, we finished up the phase 1 and just made announcement of top line results the past couple of weeks, I think 2 or 3 weeks ago. And now we're preparing to go into a phase 2. Unlike influenza, where there's a flu season and different ways of getting to sick people, norovirus is a little bit more tricky because it just kind of pops up randomly, and then it hits really hard, and then it's gone. So the way we're going to do this is working in the U.S. with a very established university to go on ahead and do a challenge model where we'll take the healthy patients, we'll induce the virus, and then treat the virus as as they get it, and use those results as our clinical trial. And that's being planned right now. We hope to start that this year as we're finishing up the phase 1. The that opportunity to get this to the market is still being looked at to find it. There's a potential to get it out to market rather quickly since there is no drug or vaccine available. I won't get too much into that, but that is something that that we are strongly looking at. In addition, I may have alluded to earlier, but we are, we've been working at it for a couple of years. It takes a long time, but we are working with BARDA, NIH on some potential collaborations and agreements and grant type activity that they have available. There's been some recent confusion, disruption in that process because of the change in administration, but that continues to progress, and I think is looking very good. Just a little bit slow, they move very slow and meticulously.
Yes, that's that's very common with BARDA and the government. So in terms of CC 42344, you recently announced some encouraging news, and the avian flu H5N1 strain that's been found in U.S. cattle herds. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, so we, as I said, we developed these drugs looking at these highly conserved area that doesn't seem to mutate depending on whichever strain of that influenza is available to us to test. I mean, I'm looking at, what I can maybe, if you don't mind, I will just screen 2 here. Here we go. Let me share. I mean, along those lines, I just happen to have this up, so I'm going to share it real quick. I mean, this is you can see all the avian flus. This is what we test against, and that we show antiviral activity. You can see the very low nanomolar. I mean, this is very encouraging results to show that we are going to be effective against not only a number of the influenza family members, which include the highly pathogenic avian, the H1, I mean the H5, the H7. So and another thing, I mean, I also want to show this, a lot of people may not know there are so many family members. I mean, there's quite a few of them. People generally think influenza, and then you maybe think of 2 or 3. Oh, there's bird flu, there's but when you get down to it, there's a lot. So we have to. This is that whole crystallization process where we map all these out, we overlay them, we look for that one spot, and it shows that with all of these, there's this one spot that hasn't mutated, and you can just imagine how important that must be to the virus to not mutate around that, and that is what we attack with our drug, and that's what we've seen, these great results coming out where we have this great antiviral activity. So just want to share that real quick since I had it up.
Sure. Okay. And just in the interest of time, uh, one of the points that's coming through is that you have important vaccines for very large markets and serious illnesses. Have you given any thought to how you're going to market this? Are you looking at partnerships or anything like that that would help support the development and then market the drug when it reaches FDA approval?
So we're looking at really remaining, and we have a great board of directors that are very big in players in biotech, being Dr. Philip Frost, Mr. Fred Hassan, and they are the type that will remain opportunistic. You never know what is the best path that ultimately will get this to market. But we have to drive forward for ourselves to take it to market, and that's the way we, as management, look at this. And so that's we're not there where we have to start hiring salespeople, manufacturing a warehouse yet. Right now, we got to get through these clinical trials. But as we get closer, either the opportunity will present itself, and it likely will. And then at that point, you got to make sure, is it a good opportunity or just someone trying to pick something up before you get to market? So that's where the experience of our board comes in, I believe. And so to simply answer your question, we are driving forward to take this to market through the traditional sense as fast as we can, and do it on our own. However, we are open to partnerships and any type of opportunity of someone that makes sense, that wants to come along for the ride and work with us. We're always happy to do something like that. But we don't plan on that. We're not sitting here saying, we're just going to do this to finish this phase 2 and sit around and hope for someone to show up. So but if they do, we're open to it, and that's kind of like the way we've been, just opportunistically moving forward.
Great. And just to wrap up, can you give us some of the milestones that we can look forward to in terms of data and product announcements?
Sure. So some things we are looking we would love to announce here is we just recently did sticking with the norovirus, we just did the phase 1 top line results. Final results will come out. We don't expect those to be any different. We also are going to be entering a phase 2 on that and doing some study work on that. So we hope to get some data out to show more efficacy on the norovirus asset, which is currently wrapping up a clinical trial. The phase 2 on the influenza is ongoing, and we hope to be able to get some results out on that. And also, as I said, we're worked with a number of applications and working to get some work with the government and BARDA. There's always, and the NIH, there's always, that's always something that could happen there and be announced. And we also have M&A activity in which we, seems to be always ongoing. Like I said, we are optimistic, and you never know. So, but it's not like those are ongoing. We are talking to other companies, and these are high level and serious discussions that we have. So so that you never know, something may come out of that. So I'm talking this year or by early next year. This is the kind of things we could look forward to.
Great.
Happening.
Okay, well, Jim, thank you for joining us and telling us about this and the clinical trials and diseases you're approaching. So we will look forward to hearing about those milestones and be in touch shortly. Thank you very much.
Thank you, and thank you for your audience. You guys have a great one. Bye-bye.
Have a great day, everybody.